Well, I've known Omer my whole life. I'm his son, and that would be 50 years this year. If I had to describe Omer in one word, that would be classy.
I would describe my brother in one word as hero.
I'd say you need two words: can do. Omer's a can do guy.
The word I'd use to describe Omer would be inclusive.
Well, we met as freshmen at Loyola University in 1958. I would describe Omer in one word: accomplished.
I met Omer for the first time, I think it was an alumni event. I was working as an ambassador, and I'm pretty sure it was just in passing. It wasn't until later that I found out that he was Omer, and I was like, oh. If I could describe Omer in a word or two, it'd have to be real.
By the way, Omer was a very sharp dresser. He always looked good. And one day I said to him how much I loved the tie he was wearing. Upon hearing that, he took the tie off and gave it to me as a gift to keep. I mean, it wasn't exactly the shirt off his back, but next thing close to it.
The one funny thing about him was when he got to really laughing and he thought something was funny, he laughed so hard, I always told him that he sounded like a donkey.
Knowing that you always had somebody like Omer on your side is a key thing. It's something I'll always miss.
My experience of Omer is all through Verbum Dei. So the loyalty that he brought to his work on the board, mentoring of me, loyalty is the word I think of immediately.
Omer would always talk about Verbum Dei, especially later. It was something he was very passionate about. He would fill up with pride about the boys, and it just made him so happy, fulfilled.
He would always say that Verbum Dei was a breeding ground of talent.
Well, when Omer was in high school, Verbum Dei did not exist. So when it was later established in the community in which he grew up, I think Omer saw himself in the young men there at Verbum Dei, and he had a great passion to help them in any way he could.
He knows what it's like. He grew up there in Watts. It wasn't easy. He had a big family, and they didn't have a lot of money, and there wasn't a lot of higher education in their family history. But my grandma, his mom, Mama Sadie, pushed him. So he was lucky because he had a very strong family behind him and a lot of good role models.
He knows what it is to grow up in certain situations that may not be the best for these young men. So he dedicated himself to help provide the opportunities for them.
He was always there. He kept showing up, so we would see him all the time. And like, why is this old guy always here? Why is he always walking around the campus? Like, he doesn't work here. What is he doing? I think Omer cared so much about us and the other students, primarily because he saw a little bit of himself in us. He was able to see the potential that everybody had. All of my former classmates do appreciate what he did for us. And if I had something to say about Cynthia, I also appreciate her for allowing him to give in the way that he did, being so supportive of his vision and the things that he saw in us.
I mean, everything I say about Omer goes for Cynthia as well. She was right there by his side in supporting Verbum Dei. I know she set up a scholarship fund in Omer's name.
Cynthia was his partner the whole way. She would talk about Verbum Dei probably more than he did even. For Cynthia, it's still a very important connection and one that she's going to continue to have.
Why do I think it's appropriate to honor Omer this evening? Well, just because he's Omer. People ought to look to Omer for a model on how to help Verbum Dei keep its doors open, and not just keep the doors open, but to thrive.
He's an example for us. He shows how we should all give and how we should all care about not only ourselves, but those who need it the most.
I think it's a great honor for him to be part of the legacy of Verbum Dei.
Okay, as a way to honor Omer, let me say a quick prayer. And it's a prayer to Omer. Omer, up there in heaven, with all of God's elect and all of those who have gone before you, goodness gracious, continue to watch over us. Be our guardian angel, and particularly be with the young man at the Verb.